Right now, 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 right now. Oh, I got a real good feeling.
We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We got to add a little addendum to the show map today. Shall we start here on the daily? Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. It always has been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your week daily morning show where we bring you the latest and everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, Bitcoin is dropping like a rock thrown in a pond. As we have discussed over the last couple of weeks, Bitcoin was most likely not going to be able to hold at $60,000. And look, we are not a perma-bearish channel. I am capable of being bullish. In fact, I am extraordinarily bullish on Bitcoin in the long run. I genuinely believe that Bitcoin is going to go to $250,000 in the next cycle, and I think that Bitcoin will rally to at least $1 million by 2035. I am extremely bullish on Bitcoin in the long run, but for a multitude of reasons that we have discussed over the last several weeks, this drop on Bitcoin is very aggressive, something that we've seen coming and something that we are prepared for. And today, that is exactly what we are going to be talking about, because overnight, Bitcoin has begun another round of descent. We saw Bitcoin drop at least $2,500 since last night, down to a local low of $62,500. If you'll recall, yesterday on stream, we discussed how Bitcoin was being rejected at the 0.618 Fibonacci level here on this corrective movement, which indicated that we were likely going to move lower. Following that, we actually dropped down around 2 o'clock yesterday and set a lower low around $64,000, bounced up and rejected off of this 0.236 level, and now we are heading even lower. As this slide continues, we are getting closer and closer to the magnetic level of support, which is none other than the 200 weekly simple moving average. At this point in time, I would be extremely impressed if Bitcoin did not come back down and touch the 200 weekly simple moving average. As we've discussed in previous content, the 200 weekly simple moving average, this gray line on our charts, is a level that is going to be tested at some point in time by virtually every single market. This is the QQQ by Invesco. You can see over and over and over and over again, you see that the market drops down and tests its 200 weekly moving average. This has been the number one narrative that we have been speaking about, number one story that we've been discussing here on this channel for the last 2 months, is the fact that markets revert to their long-term moving averages, and this is exactly what we see across every market that has ever been conceived. They don't go up and to the right forever. They do eventually have corrections, and generally speaking, a pretty strong place for a long-term actually growth-oriented asset to return to is none other than its 200 weekly moving average, and there is no reason to believe that that should be any different on Bitcoin. As you can see, I've shown you the QQQ, the SPY, and the NASDAQ in the background while I've been speaking, but we've seen the same thing happen time and time again. On gold, for example, eventually gold will fall over and hit its longer-term moving averages, probably up around $4,000 to $5,000 by that point in time. And there is no reason to believe that Bitcoin will not end up dropping back down to its 200 moving average as well. We have seen it happen at the bottom of every single bear market thus far, and there is no reason whatsoever to believe that Bitcoin will not test its 200 weekly simple moving average. This is why I have been extremely convicted ever since Bitcoin fell through $94,000 that we are in a bear market, and as we started dropping below $75,000 right over here, it became apparent that Bitcoin was going to drop back down to its 200 weekly moving average. It's not always a popular take, but it is a take that is backed up by, in my opinion, the vast majority of the technical and fundamental analysis that's on the board right now, and it does not mean that Bitcoin is not a good long-term asset. It still remains one of my largest positions in our portfolio. In fact, it is the largest position in our portfolio. we have stocks, we have high income ETFs, we have a little bit of Ethereum, but Bitcoin remains our largest holding, even following the drawdown. And that's because I firmly believe in it. So I'm a firm believer in Bitcoin, but I'm also a firm believer that when Bitcoin presents you with a 50% off all-time high discount, then that is a great opportunity that you should take advantage of. And that's exactly where we find ourselves right now. So we're about to get into the overall market review, but I want to give you one piece of wisdom, and this is financial advice. Trade the market that you have. Trade the market that you have. It's so tempting to go back and say, 6 months ago, Bitcoin was all-time high. I should have sold. But you didn't know back then that it was going to do what it did. Now, we could have seen it coming. We talked about in October about how Bitcoin was going to go to 94. If it breaks 94, we're confirming a bear market, etc. But you have to trade the market that you have. You can't go back 6 months ago. You can't do things differently back then. You cannot control the past. On the other hand, oftentimes we think that we can control the future. And we can't control the future either. The only thing that we have control over is this very moment. This strange, infinitesimally small instant between the past and the future. That is the one section of time that we are given control over. We are very finite beings. We're not God. We can't control the past, present, and future. We can't control the whole world. We can control what we can touch right now in the now. And so right now, what are some things that we should consider doing? If you're considering selling your Bitcoin, I would consider that to be a very, very foolish move. Oh, but Jeb, it might drop down to 58,000. Well, sure, it might. And it might do that over the span of 30 minutes while you're sitting on the toilet. And you might miss it. And it might bounce up to 75,000. And you might get completely left behind. I'm not recommending shorting Bitcoin down to 58,000 right now. If you're going to do a leverage trade, I mean, in theory, you could actually open a short-term short trade if we were to break through $60,000, just have a very high risk-to-reward ratio, et cetera. You could actually make that work. But I'm not recommending your longer-term spot holdings to be liquidated in anticipation of lower prices because the bottom for this bear market is getting closer. It's not in my opinion, but it is getting closer. This is the zone to be accumulating. In 4 years, you're going to look back, and every time you sold at these levels, you're going to be hitting yourself, and every time you bought, you're going to be thanking yourself. Because what Bitcoin is doing is it's following through on the exact same 4-year halving cycle that it always has, and this is the part of the halving cycle where Bitcoin has to revert back down to its longer-term moving averages. And those longer-term moving averages are simply going to help us understand where, when, and why we should be buying Bitcoin. The reason that we should be buying Bitcoin is because we believe in it in the ultra long term. And at the end of the day, when you buy high conviction assets and you hold them for a long time, what you end up doing is you end up building wealth. And so what I want to encourage you to do is to continue to watch the charts here with us as we get started in this piece of content today. And we are going to be discussing about how to actually play this market because I am very excited for you guys to build some wealth here in the cryptocurrency space. So, without much further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. All right, we are about to jump on over and look at the Fear and Greed Index. As an introduction to the Fear and Greed Index, I want to give you a quick overview. Basically, the Fear and Greed Index is going to help us to remember when to buy Bitcoin and when to not buy Bitcoin. Generally speaking, we want to be very careful of buying Bitcoin when it is sitting up here above 80 on the Fear and Greed. Up above 80, we want to avoid buying Bitcoin. When we're down below 20, we want to lean into the idea of buying Bitcoin. And the reason that we do that, quite simply, is because when we are looking at investing in a market, we want to do exactly what Warren Buffett taught. We want to buy when others are fearful, and we want to be scared and possibly even sell when others are greedy. And that's a part of the reason why Berkshire Hathaway is sitting on $400 billion of cash. Have you noticed that after Buffett exited the company, Berkshire is still sitting on $380 billion worth of cash? The theory was that Berkshire was sitting on all of that cash because Buffett wanted to leave it to his successor. But that cash still hasn't been deployed. Why not? Well, stocks are trading at the highest PE ratios that we've seen in 20 years. So it kind of makes sense. There's not a good deal. You'll look around and you're like, where are all my deals at? I don't see many great deals. The market is extremely greedy right now. QQQ has averaged 20% per year for the last decade. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy stocks here. I am. But I've got cash, man. You think I think I know more than Berkshire? No, I don't. I understand Bitcoin more than they do probably. But otherwise, no. As far as investment thesis, we buy when others are fearful and we're fearful when others are greedy. And right now, everyone is plumb terrified of Bitcoin. And so I implore you to ask yourself a very simple question. ask yourself a very simple question. Do you believe in Bitcoin any less today than you did when we were at 126,000? Just turn off the charts for a second. Chip, you're a chartist. What are you talking about? Turn off the charts for a second. Turn them off. Close your eyes. Go to your happy place with me. Forget about price action. Is there any reason that has nothing to do with price that you believe less in Bitcoin today than you would have in October of last year, in October the 6th, October the 2nd, October the 3rd, October the 6th at all-time high? Or a year ago in February of last year? Can you come up with a single reason why Bitcoin is any different or any worse of an investment today than it was then? Forget about the price for a second. Can you think of any reason? I don't know about you, but I can't. I can't think of a single reason that Bitcoin is anything different than exactly what it was a year ago. You know, the miners, they are so funny over on X. They say, Bitcoin crashed? What are you talking about? I just checked all my stuff. Bitcoin's fine. Quantum. Okay, somebody said quantum. What has really changed with quantum in the last 12 months? Quantum's making strides, is making improvements, but quantum is no closer to cracking Bitcoin than it was a year ago, in my opinion. I mean, you can disagree with me on that all you want. That's fine. You're completely entitled to your opinion. And right now, it's just opinion. We have no idea. But I don't see any reason to be concerned about that. But what I do remember is that every cycle in the past, there was always a narrative that, oh, Bitcoin's going to die because of this. I remember when I got into Bitcoin, you know, people were talking about, oh, Bitcoin's going to die because people are putting nefarious things, let me just leave it at that, Epstein file kind of stuff on the blockchain. It's going to be hard-coded into the blockchain forever. And then if you have if you have a node for Bitcoin, you're going to be guilty of holding, you know, this kind of stuff. And this was the narrative back here, that Bitcoin's going to die because of that. The narrative over here was, oh, well, you know, Bitcoin's going to die just because it's going to die, right? Luna exploded, FTX exploded. This was the bear market of institutions in the cryptocurrency space exploding. So Bitcoin's going to die because of that. And then it went on a 700% run. Everybody who's whining and complaining about this bull market not being good, you missed out on an 8x. I'm sorry you didn't buy the bottom. The alts never rallied. That's true. And yes, this was never the parabolic uptrend that we would have liked, but it was still an 8x from the bottom. If you caught half of that, you quadrupled your money. So let's understand that Bitcoin is still the best performing asset of the last decade. And it's most likely going to be in the next decade as well. In my opinion, there is absolutely no reason to believe anything fundamentally different about Bitcoin than I did 6 months ago or a year ago. So when I see Bitcoin on a discount and I see fear at the extreme, what I understand is that people are fearful because of the price. They're not fearful because of the fundamentals. If they were fearful because of the fundamentals, I wouldn't buy. But they're not fearful because of the fundamentals. They're fearful because they're worried about the market dropping farther, which means that as it drops farther, I buy more. I told you guys on X a few days ago, I believe it was like 6 days ago, so it was like over here somewhere, that I am no longer buying Bitcoin until sub 60,000. Basically, this bounce has been abysmal, and Bitcoin is most likely going to go below $60,000. And of course, this correction has ensued. So where do we go, and why did we drop down here? Well, first, let's go ahead and read some chat. Really appreciate all of you guys for being here. Bartizan is in chat, said LFG. Ave Angel is in chat. Good to see you again. It's been a while. Good to see you. How are you doing? Crypto Royal 999 dropping the Union Jack in chat. Good to see you. Chipper is in chat. Miguel Orangel is in chat. Derek Lee in chat. Let's see. Funky Finance is in chat. Bitcoin going to $198,000 next week. That'd be a sight. What are my thoughts on Ethereum? My thoughts on Ethereum are that it is a very, very useful stablecoin. Crypto Surge said, good morning, Jeb. Good morning, chat. Good morning. Good morning to all of you. Bless you, brother. Technically, if the 4-year cycle remains, Bitcoin will be in a bear market for 4 years. What? That's not how that works. No, typically the bear markets, let me illuminate this for you. Typically the bear markets are, let's draw the bull markets, and you can see the bear markets kind of hiding in between them. These are roughly the bull markets, and you'll notice a couple of things about them. Number one, they're very regular. Number two, they're almost always the exact same length, like within a few weeks of each other. And then you have the bear markets kind of peeking in here. And when you look at it like that, you're like, whoa, This market is extremely reliable. It does the same thing over and over again. That's why technical analysis works so well on Bitcoin. TA works astonishingly well on Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I suppose it must just be because Bitcoin is such an algorithmic, it's such a predictable algorithmic product, asset maybe would be the better word, asset, that it creates a chart that's very algorithmic and predictable. I guess that's what it is, because the stock market's unpredictable. You got this, that, and the third, causing, just wild things to happen on the chart. But with Bitcoin, it just kind of comes down to the halving. It comes down to the 10-minute block time. It comes down to miners. It comes down to hash power, which is almost always increasing, etc. So you end up having a chart that is very samey. But that's helpful if you're an analyst, because what that tells us is that we can basically predict pretty accurately where the bottom's going to be. It's probably going to be somewhere around here, and we're getting close to it. And so the bear markets are typically about a year long, which is pretty cool. Bear markets are typically about a year long. That was about 357 days. This one's about 365 days. If we were to see a samey length bear market, then we would probably see the bear market bottom being sometime in August, September, possibly October of this year, which is honestly, if you think about it, not that far away. I remember I was here for this bear market completely the entire time. I was here for this bear market completely the entire time. We did content all the way throughout both of these bear markets. We have been completely consistent on the channel here. And I love watching the Bitcoin market because it's just so interesting to watch it evolve. But bear markets typically last about a year, which is phenomenal, because that means that we know about how long winter is going to be. I mean, imagine how terrifying it would be if you were a farmer and you didn't know how long winter was going to be. And you're like, oh my gosh, I got to prepare for winter, but is it going to be 3 months? Is it going to be 4 years? Is it going to be the rest of my life? Is there going to be an ice age? I mean, if you studied history and you've heard of the times that there were volcanic winters, like when I believe Mount Kilimanjaro was one of them, when Mount Toba, was it? When these different massive volcanoes have erupted and plunged the earth into a extremely long winter because of all the ash and soot blocking out the sun, impairing farming. Farmers got annihilated. People starved to death by the millions because winter was just a few weeks to a few months longer than they anticipated. It's bad when that happens. So it would be really bad, not that bad, obviously, but it'd be really bad if the bear markets were 4 years long, because they've never been 4 years long before. Nobody's prepared for that. That would be rough. But again, as I've said, the Bitcoin market, at least thus far, and past performance does not guarantee future results, but at least thus far, is actually extremely predictable, which is nice. Now, let's talk about why Bitcoin is probably going down to $60,000. You guys have heard me tell you that for a very long time, and this is what is probably going to take place. We rallied up to the 0.382 Fibonacci level. We rejected off of it. We did not put in higher highs. We put in lower highs. This was a key distinction from our more distant bounce off of $80,000. We bounced, and we started putting in higher highs. This showed some signs of strength, which was helpful, but it was not what we needed to see Bitcoin actually go through a major rally. And by the way, we discussed how this was a 3-5A setup over here that was invalid, so we weren't going to look for the ABC. Do you recall that? We discussed this looks like an Elliott wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is the ABC, but it didn't actually set up correctly, so this ended up not playing out. It's part of the reason that we expected Bitcoin would drop down below $80,000. Now we're saying that we expect Bitcoin's going to drop down below $60,000 because bear markets are vicious. And when you're in the beginning and the middle stages of the bear markets, the best thing you can do is just be wildly bearish, just ridiculously bearish, because Bitcoin needs you just have to have that kind of stance on it. Now, so what did Bitcoin do here? We went into this symmetrical triangle pattern. Bitcoin, as we discussed yesterday, fell through and created an overside underside test. This is the key right here. We had our overside underside test. We bounce, it's support, we fall through, test it as resistance, and we fall down. And so that most likely means that we're falling down to our next level of support, which is $60,000. However, $60,000, when you're taking a run at it from this far away, you're exhausted by the time you get here. When you're taking a run at it and you're from this far away, the bears are fresh. They're ready to break through $60,000. So 60K could hold. It could, but it probably won't. And so that's a big part of the reason for that. The other thing to keep in mind is that we were looking at a previous all-time high here at $69,000, right about there. Bitcoin categorically failed to get above that level, not getting as far each time we attempted to break through it. We got about $3,000 through it the first time, about $2,000 through it the second time. We rejected off of it the third time. And then we also have that overside underside test. This is very clearly bearish structure, which is why we have been telling you for quite a while that Bitcoin was likely going back down to $60,000. At the end of the day, the charts don't lie, and if you're able to be disciplined enough to remove your emotions from the charts, then you will have the ability to understand with quite a bit of confidence, to be quite honest with you, which direction it's going to go. This is a lot more, this is not as complicated as it looks. You just have to get out of your own head and stop applying what you want the market to do to the charts. Let me give you a quick piece of advice. Do your technical analysis in the morning before you check your portfolio, because the second you look at your portfolio and you see how much you're up or down, you're going to get distracted. Can I tell you the truth? I have not looked at my Bitcoin and checked how much I'm up or down since like $108,000 because I don't freaking care. And I don't want to have the emotional roller coaster of seeing a negative six-figure number because I believe in Bitcoin. I don't need to see that. I don't care. What I need to focus on right now is not what my Bitcoin is doing, but what my cash is doing. In a bull market, I'm focusing on what my Bitcoin is doing, because I need to sell some of it if I want to, or not. As you guys know, I like to just hold it for the long run. But you know, for some people, you want to sell Bitcoin at the top. I understand. Nothing wrong with that strategy. Just be careful. In that case, you would need to be watching your Bitcoin because you would need to be looking at when you're going to actually liquidate some of it for a profit. But in a bear market, I don't look at my Bitcoin holdings. I have not opened any of my wallet softwares or any of it. I know how much Bitcoin I have, and that's the only number I look at, is I still have the same amount of Bitcoin that I did a month ago. That's all I look at. What I'm instead looking at is my cash reserves. How much cash do I have? How quickly can I deploy this? How much restraint do I need to have based on how much cash I have left for the bear market and based on how much farther I think the bear market will go? And so we've been pretty convinced that Bitcoin was going to go back down towards $60,000. And I said, I'm not buying again until sub $60,000. And that's going to take some discipline because I want to buy at $63,000. I really do. I love buying at $63,000. What a great entry. That is literally exactly 50% off previous all-time high. To rally from where we are right now would be exactly a 100% return, a double. It is very tempting to buy more here. And I might break my rule and buy a little bit, but the vast majority of my cash reserves are reserved for sub $60,000 because, as I said, that 200 weekly simple moving average is a magnet that we're not just going to hover on top of. It's not going to happen. I am extraordinarily confident that that's not going to take place. The likelihood of just coming down and hovering above the 200 and not touching it, if that truly is the bear market bottom, let me just get this straight for you. If that truly is the bear market bottom, if the bear market bottom truly is right here and we don't even hit the 200 weekly moving average, then honestly, we do need to consider the idea of super cycle, because this would be an extremely small and short bear market. If that genuinely is the bottom, let's say right now we genuinely were bottomed here. This is hands down, far and away, the shortest bear market in the history of Bitcoin by a huge margin, because this bear market is only 52% deep. The last bear market, which was the smallest bear market ever when it happened, was 78% deep. If $62,000 actually is the bottom, then that just proves that the next bull market is going to be ridiculously bullish, like absolutely incredibly bullish. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense that Bitcoin doesn't hit the 200 moving average. So just expect there to be some buy orders here at 58,000, which will provide support. But on the flip side, and here's the concerning thing, also expect there to be some liquidations down here at 58,000. Right now, Bitcoin is dipping deep into the visible range volume profile point of control, the POC, the point of control. If we do actually finish, because as you can see, Bitcoin was not just bouncing off the 200 WEMA. We weren't just bouncing off the 200 WEMA. We were also bouncing off of the point of control. That rejected. This failure right here means that we're going to 200 SMA at least, and possibly to the next major zone of visible range volume profile support, which if we take the entire market into account, a lot of that's going to start building up down here at 50,000. And a great deal of that is from the previous bear market. If you're just considering this last bull market as support, then you start having to look down towards 40,000, where we have some trading right here to find support around the $42,000 range. So the thing you need to understand is that Bitcoin just had a major technical breakdown beneath critical support at 69,000. It's also important to note that that point of control before it disappears also intersects, see it disappear because it drops down here, but it also intersects with the previous all-time high. The fact that we broke beneath previous all-time high with this level of strength indicates bearish acceleration, not deceleration. So again, do with that what you will, but my main point here is that I want you to be very careful. All right, let's read a little bit of chat. I really appreciate all of you guys for being here. Let's read some more chat. Another junk alt. What's your take on Morpho? Morpho. Okay, Morpho is an interesting one. Morpho is an interesting one. Morpho is probably not a junk alt, actually. And the reason that Morpho is probably not a junk altcoin is because they are partnered with Coinbase. Morpho must have gotten ridiculously wealthy. Morpho must have made a lot of money in the last few months from people getting liquidated. My issue with Morpho is it's not really moving. It's integrated with Coinbase. I don't think that's going anywhere. The price action hasn't gone anywhere either, right? Because there's still a lot of this early distribution. But you also see there's a maximum supply of only 1 billion. So would I recommend purchasing it? It's got strong fundamentals. It's got strong fundamentals being tied in with Coinbase. And so that would be the main reason to look at it. So I definitely would give it a yellow light, tentatively a green light. But yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not interested. So I suppose that would probably be the most important take on it is I'm not interested. I'm not going to buy it. All right, let's read just a couple more minutes of chat, and then we're going to keep it going here. Thanks, Jeb. Absolutely. We've had 4 bull cycles, which is a trend line that's about to start on the next 4x4 bull cycle. Oh, so you think it's going to it's going to get even bigger. How about that? Yeah, maybe. No, 4 years from now, we will be in the bear market again. Oh, I apologize. Down Under Blues. Yes, Down Under Blues was not saying a 4-year bear market. He was saying in 4 years we'll be in a bear market again. Most likely. Yeah, we probably will. In 2030, we'll probably be a bear market. If you guys have not already, make sure to hit that like button. I only see 5 likes. I don't know if that just hasn't updated, but there's 333 people watching and only 5 likes. Crypto King said, love the tie, by the way. Thank you. It's an orange paisley pattern. I love this tie. Let's see. Looking sharp, brother Jeb. Thank you so much. Raiden said, nice suit. Thank you. I do appreciate it. Been missing the stream and looking forward to the good times again. Good morning, Satchet. Good morning. All right. Let's dive right back on into it. So, if we are most likely going to see a decline on Bitcoin down to at least $58,000 on the 200, what do we do with that? Well, the next technical question I would have is Bitcoin going to break the 200? Ultimately, historically, the answer has been no. In our first 2 bear markets, Bitcoin did not break through the 200. It provided ample support. The issue with the idea that we're not going to break the 200 is that the 200 moving average was significantly closer to the price action this time than it has been in previous bull markets. In our less parabolic bull market, because this bull market was amazing, but it was still nowhere near as parabolic as the one prior, Bitcoin dropped back down to its 200 moving average. And the reason that it dropped back down to its 200 moving average and broke through it was because the 200 moving average was a lot closer. So let's analyze what it took for Bitcoin to get back down to the 200 moving average in history. In our first bear market, it took 413 days for Bitcoin to get down to the 200 moving average and an 85% reduction in price. By that point in time, the bears were exhausted. In our next bear market, very similarly, Bitcoin needed to drop 84% over 371 days to get back down to its 200 moving average. Now, why? Well, recall the way that moving averages work. They lag, and as Bitcoin went completely parabolic, it got very far away from the moving average, and the moving average couldn't keep up. So it took a very long time and a lot of price reduction to get down to that level. Now, in the next bull market here, things moved a little bit differently, and for Bitcoin to get down to the 200 moving average was only a 68% drop over 224 days. Notice how much smaller this correction is. Now, in this case, assuming that we drop back down to the 200 moving average in the next few weeks, Bitcoin would only need to drop 54% over about 161 days to get down to the 200 weekly moving average. So does it make sense that the 200 weekly moving average is going to break? Yes, it does. Because the 200 moving average was significantly closer to the price of Bitcoin than it has been in prior markets. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, Bitcoin spent a great deal of time in this bulwark of price action, sitting vastly far above the 200 moving average. Whereas over here, Bitcoin spent a lot of time on the 200 moving average and then just kind of skyrocketed away from it and spent a bunch of time above it. So we ended up getting much further away from the 200 because of that rapid acceleration. In this case, we spent a lot of time right here in the middle, quite a bit above the 200. Where over here in the middle of the in the middle of the bull market, we spent a lot of time right on the 200. So in other words, the 200 was lower compared to the all-time high, which meant you had to go farther to get to it. Whereas in this case, we did a lot of our gains right here in the early stages, and then we basically just traded sideways. So we actually saw the 200 be a lot closer to us because most of the gains happened early in the bull market rather than later in the bull market. Hopefully that makes sense. Because it's later, the 200 had less time to catch up, whereas in this case, the 200 had more time to catch up because the gains were made early. What that means is that the 200 moving average is closer, which means it's easier to test. So in all likelihood, in my opinion, not only is there no reason to believe that the 200 moving average will not be tested, there's also no reason to believe that the 200 moving average will hold as support. In fact, there is a real concern that when you test the 200 moving average, that a great number of longs could become liquidated, which could lead to bearish acceleration because we tested the 200 moving average. And whereas in the previous bull market, we saw great fear because of the unraveling of multiple different companies in the cryptocurrency space, in this bear market, you could see quite a lot of fear because of the unraveling of the technicals. The 200 weekly EMA was supposed to hold. Well, that was a load of nonsense. It was never supposed to hold. Well, the 200 weekly simple moving average was supposed to hold, but it didn't in the last bear market. Oh, but the 300 moving average down here at 50,000, it was supposed to hold. What if it doesn't? Are you ready? You see, the individuals that survive, and not only survive, but thrive in Bitcoin are individuals that are a little bit crazy. They're a little bit psychotic. They're a little bit nuts. And you know why they survive? Because they are just crazy enough to ride Bitcoin's roller coaster no matter what it can throw at it, no matter what it throws at you. There's one time I was on a roller coaster at Busch Gardens down in South Florida with a friend of ours. And we get up to the top, the very top, and I look out, I'm like, is that the roller coaster? He looks at me, he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And I just thought to myself, I'm going to die. That's okay. Good to meet you, Jesus. You got to have a little bit of that attitude when you're in Bitcoin. Drops down to 40,000. I'll be all right. I believe in Bitcoin. Did you do what Jesus told you to do about salvation? Did you do that about Bitcoin? Did you count the cost? When you bought Bitcoin at 110,000, did you count what it would cost if it dropped to 40? When you bought Bitcoin at 120, did you count the cost of what would happen if it dropped it down to 40? I almost bought $30,000 of Bitcoin at the very top, like at 124,000. You know why I didn't? Because I stopped and I counted the cost. Do I really want to lose $20,000 off of one trade if Bitcoin goes to 40K? Because we're getting close to bear market. I think not. And just a few days later, I was so glad that I followed my own principles and didn't do that. We all bought more than we should have up in the hundreds, myself included. We all got in a big race to accumulate as much Bitcoin as we possibly could. The time for that race is now, though. It was not 6 months ago. It's now. If you're like, I want to get my hands on X number of Bitcoin, now's your opportunity. Now's your chance. 6 months ago, that was not the time for it. Right now, though, oh boy, these are incredible prices. But still, count the cost. What if Bitcoin does what it did in the last bear market? What if Bitcoin drops 77% like it did in the last bear market? Are you ready to ride this puppy down to 30 grand? If that happens, are you ready for it? I'm not saying it's going to, but are you ready for it? If you are, go for it. Start scooping up sats left, right, and center. Because the future is going to be bright. If you can hold on to the roller coaster, you're going to be just fine. But if you take your seatbelt off, you're going to fly out of that thing and you're going to hit the side of the concrete wall. And it's going to hurt. If you can hold on, go for it. But if you're going to get shaken out of whatever it is that you're buying, when Bitcoin eventually challenges, strike that, destroys your assumptions about what it should do, and, oh, well, Bitcoin should do this because I want it to, and I'm going to pretend that I know what I'm talking about because I want it to go here, so I'm going to come up with every reason to believe that it possibly will. No, if Bitcoin does what it has always done, and it completely just smacks you in the face with a 2x4, are you ready for that? If so, get on board, man. If not, cowards need not apply. So, I'm going to tie all this back into life real quick, and then we're going to kind of move into a conclusion. Anything that you do in life, there's absolutely no point in doing it if you're a coward. There's no point in following Jesus if you're going to be a coward. What did you just say, Jeb? Yes, there's no point in following Jesus if you're going to have no faith. Because following Jesus means having faith. There's no point in joining the military if you're going to be a coward. There's no point in starting a business if you're going to be a coward. There's no point in getting married if you're going to be a coward. If you're a coward, own it and live a boring, useless life. But if you're like me and you're not interested in living a boring, useless life and being dead weight to society, then grow a pair and find something useful to do in every area of your life. If you believe that Bitcoin, like I do, if you believe like I do, that Bitcoin is some of the greatest long-term savings technology ever invented in the history of mankind, then position yourself so that you can weather the 80% bear markets because you want the 800% bull markets. Position yourself more so in cash as we're entering the end of the 4-year halving cycle, and more so in Bitcoin as we're entering the end of the bear market. And I believe that you'll be glad you did. Ultimately, if you have to make your own decisions for yourself. But cowards need not apply. The people that built wealth in Bitcoin are so confident, they're so convicted that they look absolutely crazy. And that's how they made money. That's how they made money. Is they psychologically prepared themselves for the worst. Do you know how Paul went to the New World and preached the gospel, and he got chased out of town? He got thrown in the lions' den. He got he was put in the Colosseum. Do you know how Paul went through all of that? He was lashed and beaten and thrown in jail. You know how he went through all that? We think about our cushy lives as Christians today. Well, I can't go to that. I haven't had my coffee yet. Do you know how Paul managed to pull that off? Because he counted himself dead before he ever started. I'm already dead. I'm dead man walking. Do whatever you want to me. I'm already dead. I can't lose anything else because I've already counted as all lost in the first place. If you want to succeed in Bitcoin, the second you put $1 into Bitcoin, you need to consider it gone. You have to count that cost. What is it going to cost if you put $100,000 into Bitcoin at $64,000 a coin and tomorrow it goes to zero? Are you comfortable with that? I am. I believe in Bitcoin so much, and I believe in my positioning so much that I will be totally fine if Bitcoin goes to zero tomorrow because I've already counted as lost until it's realized. Until I spend it on something, it's already gone. And then I get to wake up a happy man if I get to spend that Bitcoin in a profit. And I will. I'm very confident of that. All right, let's read some chat. Shout out Paul, man. Shout out to Paul. All right. No coins will survive because none have any intrinsic value, just like bonds and fiat. Bitcoin will survive. As Bardizon said, monetary physics applies here. We're dealing with ultimate scarcity that is secured by one of the greatest revolutions in the history of computing, which is decentralized scarcity. This is why our gold and silver and other metals hold their value against fiat. Creating coins out of thin air violates the laws of monetary physics the same way fiat does. The only coins that will survive are coins that are built based on the laws of monetary physics. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. My birthday VWAP didn't hold. Oh. All right. All right. Now, if you guys have not already, I highly encourage you to check out one of our sponsors of today's video, which is none other than NordVPN. If you guys have not already signed up, I highly encourage you to sign up for NordVPN. The reason you should is because there are hackers and thieves out there that are trying to steal from you. They want to steal your money. They want to take your wealth and put it in their own pockets, and they want to spend it for themselves. And I don't know about you, but I think that sucks. I don't want hackers and thieves getting my resources that I've worked very diligently for. That's for me and my family and for our church and our community. And so I do everything that I can to protect myself against evil people because I, once again, I don't want to walk around scared. If you want to have conviction of Bitcoin, one of the things that's going to shake you out of holding a bunch of Bitcoin is like, oh my gosh, well, what if it gets stolen? What if somebody hacks me? What if somebody... If you have good security, it'll help you to not sell it because you'll understand, nope, that's in the vault. That thing ain't going anywhere. It's completely safe. NordVPN is going to help you with that. It's going to help you to stay safe against hackers and thieves and scammers and phishing attempts and evil people that are trying to extort you for your Bitcoin, etc. There's all kinds of different products that NordVPN has, but most importantly is the VPN. That's a virtual private network that is going to reroute your search traffic through their servers so that nobody can see what you're doing online. Because genuinely, it's when you're doing anything online, it's basically like you're driving down the interstate with a billboard in the back of your truck bed saying, this is who I am, this is all of my information, and anybody can come along and snatch you. Anybody can just take a picture of that, and then boom, they've got all that information. That's literally what it's like browsing on the internet without a VPN. A VPN is a little bit like taking a private road. It's a private road. You have your butler, his name is Jeeves, and nobody can see you because you're concealed. You've got a cloaking device when you're browsing. NordVPN keeps you safe. So if you haven't already, make sure to sign up for NordVPN. Links in the description box down below, or go to nordvpn.com/Jeb. I also highly encourage you guys, if you have not already, to check out the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. If you want to learn how to do the kind of technical analysis that you see us doing here every single day on the stream, CT2A is the place to learn. We've had over 5,000 students over the last 8 years go through CT2A learning how to build wealth in the cryptocurrency space by understanding the charts. They understand the technical analysis. And I highly encourage you to check out CT2A with the link in the description box down below. Like I said, over 12 hours of content over here teaching you all of the different things you're going to need to know about technical analysis. You will come in maybe having some understanding of technical analysis, and you will come out being ready to read the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency markets. All right, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're going to go ahead and wrap it out. I really appreciate all of you for being here. If you did enjoy today's video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, follow us on X over at CryptoJeb. And before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.